So friends, as you already know, Judge Tanya Chutkan ruled that Donald Trump is not a king. Donald Trump can be prosecuted for his crimes. And Donald Trump has appealed that ruling. Well, now, Special Counsel Jack Smith didn't respond by saying, well, not so fast. Jack Smith responded by saying, okay, let's do it really fast. Let's talk about that, because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So friends, let's do a short explainer on the multiple appeals that are kicking around on this claim by Donald Trump that he should be absolutely immune from prosecution. In other words, Donald Trump is claiming that presidents can commit any crime they want while in office, and he maintains they can never be prosecuted for those crimes. I know. It's absurd. It's the stuff of banana republics. Still, let's do a short recap. Judge Tanya Chutkan, who is presiding over Donald Trump's federal case in Washington, D.C., his prosecution for trying to overturn the 2020 presidential election, she held a hearing on this issue, and she ruled that presidents are not kings. Donald Trump doesn't have immunity from being prosecuted for his crimes. There's no statute, no law. There's no precedent, no appellate court opinion. There is no constitutional provision that says presidents are kings and can't be prosecuted. So she denied his motion to just throw the case out, based on his claim that he was absolutely immune against prosecution. Not surprisingly, Donald Trump appealed Judge Chutkan's ruling. And when Donald Trump appealed, Special Counsel Jack Smith did two things. One, he asked that appellate court, the D.C. Federal Circuit Court of Appeals, to put the appeal on a fast track, expedite it. Let's move through this litigation rapidly and get a quick decision because we have a March 4 trial date in this case. But Jack Smith did a second thing. He kind of went with a belt-and-suspenders approach, right? Trying to hold up the legal pants with both a belt and suspenders. And he also filed a motion with the Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court. Now, that's the court that's over the top of the D.C. Federal Circuit Court of Appeals. And Jack Smith said to the Supreme Court, the case is going to end up here anyway. We would like you to take hold of this case immediately and decide it quickly. Don't even wait for the lower appellate court to decide it. Now, importantly, friends, there is a procedure that allows Jack Smith to make this request of the Supreme Court. The case can actually leapfrog right over the appeals court and end up in the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court can decide it. So, as I say, Jack Smith, going with a belt and suspenders approach, filed in both courts, asked the D.C. Federal Circuit Court of Appeals, please do it very quickly if you're going to do it, and also asked the Supreme Court to leapfrog it over the appeals court. And now, friends, we have an answer to one of those two requests from Jack Smith. We have an answer from the D.C. Federal Circuit Court of Appeals. So let's turn to the new reporting, this from NBC News. Headline, Court will expedite immunity appeal in election interference case. And that article begins, a federal court on Wednesday granted Special Counsel Jack Smith's request for an expedited appeal in the election interference case against former President Donald Trump. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit set several deadlines for prosecutors and the defense to file briefs laying out their positions on Trump's argument that the case should be dismissed on presidential immunity grounds. No date for oral arguments has been set. The decision to take up the appeal threatens to push back the trial's start date, currently scheduled for March 4. The article then goes on to relate that all of the briefs from the prosecutors and the defense attorneys are due to the appellate court by January 2nd. The article continues. The court's decision to take up the expedited appeal comes after U.S. District Judge Tanya Chutkan, who is presiding over the federal election interference case, ruled that Trump's presidential immunity claims did not shield him from the charges. Trump appealed that decision. So friends, that's where things stand procedurally. The appellate court has agreed to speed it up, to expedite the appeal, and all briefs are due on January 2nd. Now, the Supreme Court, in response to Jack Smith's request to have the case leapfrog over the appeals court and go right to the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court has ordered Donald Trump's attorneys to respond, to file a brief responding to Jack Smith's request, and that brief is due on December 20th. Now, no one can predict how this thing will play out procedurally. I guess no one can really predict how it will play out on the merits, that is, how the courts will answer the substance of the question, is a president king? Is a president above the law? Can a president commit all the crimes he wants while in office with complete immunity, never being prosecuted for those crimes? Now, no one can predict accurately, definitively, how the courts will answer that question, but I've maintained all along the Supreme Court will almost certainly answer that question in the negative. No, a president is not a king. A president is not above the law. A president can be prosecuted for crimes he commits while in office. Why? Because if they rule that a president is king, they are giving away their co-equal branch of government status, right? They like being the Supreme Court, not inferior to the president, but supreme to the president. They're the last stop on, saying what is and is not legal, what is and is not constitutional. If a president gets to commit crimes with impunity, they have now elevated him to being above the Supreme Court. They're not going to do it. They love their supreme power, don't they? In fact, if they said a president can commit any and all crimes in office with complete protection against prosecution, Donald Trump could simply order the Supreme Court disbanded. Sure, that might constitute any number of crimes, but if the Supreme Court says that's good to go, are you telling me Donald Trump wouldn't try to dismantle the branch of government that is actually supreme to him? Or maybe he would just invite the Supreme Court justices he doesn't like to see him out on Fifth Avenue. Yeah, the Supreme Court will not rule that a president is king, because justice matters. Friends, as always, please stay safe, please stay tuned, and I look forward to talking with you all again tomorrow.